And welcome back. New tonight at 11, we are now focusing on those who watch over us out on the waterways, the crews of the Coast Guard who cover the Great Lakes.
Over the weekend, crews from Ohio rescued several people after a number of boats capsized on Lake Erie. Here's 2 on your side's Ron Plant's original story on Coast Guard Station Buffalo.
From safe boating events to recruiting drives or out on the water, you may have encountered the men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard, but we asked to go more behind the scenes to better understand their mission, from search and rescue to protecting us on our coastlines and waterways to law enforcement and even what they call aids to navigation. So think of the Coast Guard's Buffalo station like a fire station where they're always keeping watch.
They're ready to go and deploy on a Coast Guard response boat within 30 minutes.
Their specific zone of responsibility from Dunkirk to up the Niagara River as part of the Great Lakes District, which is one of the busiest areas for the Coast Guard in the entire country.
Lake Erie can turn at a moment's notice. It's the shallowest lake out of all the Great Lakes, which means that it can go from flat calm to very, very choppy, very hazardous weather conditions in a bat of an eye. We could have a kayaker who flipped over right outside of the Coast Guard station here and can't get back in their kayak. Maybe the water temperature is cold that day, so we're looking at possible hypothermic conditions. Or we could have a vessel that just ran out of gas and it's a few miles offshore, but maybe the weather's turning and we need to get out there and get them back to shore before they possibly capsize that vessel.
Their dispatch calls come in through transferred 911, and they also monitor marine radio VHF channel 16. Sometimes they'll call in a Coast Guard helicopter out of Detroit to handle a rescue with those dramatic airborne hoists to safety. But the lake is not their only concern, as we found out with our ride aboard their 45-foot medium response boat powered by twin diesel engines and jet drive propulsion.
It's pretty unique. It's almost like a giant jet ski, and it's pretty quick for how big it is.
Yep, we found it out when they opened it up a bit to charge into the Niagara River, which can really test those powerful engines and be treacherous for inexperienced or somewhat careless boaters or those on jet skis.
Are the vessels overloaded? That's a big one here, because we get a lot of guys come out. They don't realize, they put on, their entire family comes with them, so they overload the boat, create an unsafe situation. Doesn't matter how good a swimmer you are, if you fall off a jet ski, you're going to be away from that thing in just minutes. It's going to pull you away.
And you can see the water ripping through the International Peace Bridge area here between Canada and the U.S.
These Coast Guard crews obviously have at times very dangerous duties. That brought home tragically when 2 Coast Guard members from the Youngstown station died in March 2001. As for that law enforcement and homeland security part of their mission, you'll note they carry sidearms, and some of their boats can easily mount machine guns.
We are ever vigilant, patrolling the waters between the U.S. and Canada, looking for threats and making sure that our presence is known.
That also extends to any giant Lakers pulling into Buffalo's port, but they do share responsibility with a shared border.
So we train with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Force. We are also trained with them to conduct joint law enforcement patrols.
Coast Guard Buffalo has another, perhaps overlooked mission, placing and maintaining navigation aids or buoys to make sure boaters steer clear of danger and stay on course in channels.
I know that we're responsible for over 350 aids to navigation assets, so the entirety of Lake Ontario and most of Lake Erie.
And of course, they must remove most of the buoys in the fall before winter ice damages them, and then replace them again in the spring aboard buoy tenders like this. To do all this work, Coast Guard Buffalo Station is actually getting new buildings, expected to be done next year, to replace aging 1960s and 70s era structures, which take a winter weather beating.
The new facility here is built to withstand all of those expected environmental challenges from being right here on the Buffalo waterfront.
Yeah, now the Coast Guard is technically under Homeland Security with its 55,000 personnel, but like many other military branches out there, recruiting is extremely difficult these days, and as of 2023, the Government Accounting Office, the GAO, reported it was 4,800 members short of its recruiting goal.
So the Coast Guard, which covers 100,000 miles of coastline and waterways, has had to adjust. some of its station staffing.
Yep, and they're working hard on getting more recruits, that's for
Yeah.
sure.